We've already warmed 1 degree Celsius, and do you know what's happened since then? Here, let me tell you. We have had more food grown since then, which feeds people. We are able to, producing fossil fuels keeps people's houses warm in the winter. That saves people's lives. People die in the cold.
Right.
This earth warming and carbon is actually healthy for us. It helps us to feed people. It helps keep people alive. It helps. The earth is more green than it was years and years ago, and that's because of the earth warming. That's because of carbon.
That is Marjorie Greene inflicting her second grade understanding of science and climate on the entire country. Regrettably, she is an elected official. She's not on committees or anything, but in theory, she could be in a position where her vote in the future could determine the path of America's response to climate change and global warming, which she seems to think is cool. She is setting herself off against the vast majority of all of the nation's scientists, the world's scientists. I will leave it to you to determine who is more likely to be right in this case. The points that she chose to make there is that we're making more food because it's warmer, and she helpfully reminds us that food feeds people. That's good. I wasn't sure what the stakes were with the food thing, but that also people die of cold, and so it's good that it's getting hotter. Look, this is madness. If you know anything about the climate, about the debate over climate change, none of this makes any sense. But just in case, we're gonna give you some of the basic facts in just a second. First though, what did you make of that? She's a full-grown adult and an elected representative.
Yeah, I mean, you said that she had a second grade understanding of this problem, and I take offense to that because I think second graders know so much more than whatever that statement was. This is unbelievable. I had read her comments, but I hadn't actually seen the video, and this is, I mean, she just goes lower and lower and lower and lower and lower. And again, this is coming from someone, just her tenuous grasp of the facts in every single situation. You know, she's talking about sickness, but also like doesn't believe that COVID was a big problem. So it's crazy. And also the guy sitting next to her, is he just her?
I want his internal monologue so bad.
Yeah, if he has one, I mean,
it's
what?
Possible.
Yeah, I don't know.
It might just be like a really tired rat running on a treadmill.
Yeah, no, it's not good.
No, it's not good. Although I will say, it might not be clear if you're watching this, but what you just saw from Marjorie Greene is in fact progress. It might not be clear, but what she said was the fact that the globe is warming is a good thing, and that acknowledges that the globe is warming. That is actually progress. I mean, this is how it happens. They deny that it's happening, then perhaps they argue that maybe it's happening, but if it is happening, it's not our fault. And then eventually they move to, okay, it's happening, it's our fault, but we can't or shouldn't do anything about it. And I hope that that's the final phase. Unfortunately, it's likely that we will remain in that phase until we hit Mad Maxian times, but that's actual progress. That said, let's give you a little bit of the actual science. So we say this for people who might be new to this issue, including Marjorie Greene. I hope that you're watching, Congresswoman. The rise in temperature is driving an increase in extreme weather events, shifting temperature extremes, intensifying heavy rainfall, droughts, and other damaging climate extremes that are negatively impacting crop production and threatening global food security. Things like using energy to heat or cool your home, or for agricultural processes, themselves generate carbon emissions that contribute to global warming, not the other way around. It's not like the carbon goes into your house, warms you up, and then poof, it's gone and we're back. That's not how that actually works. And HuffPost had a little bit of fun with this, saying that as any school-age biology student could tell you, plants do use carbon dioxide. She got that right. This underscores the urgency to protect and restore ecosystems like forests and grasslands to help remove carbon emissions from the atmosphere. Unfortunately, it appears that her attachment to increased greenery is a purely passive thing. She's not interested in generating more of it. She's just noticing that stuff is greener. Here's the issue though. She said it's good that it's warming because then less people will die of the cold. which should not require any fact checking. But just to be clear, I looked at what the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration has to say about weather-related deaths, and you can see this chart. It's from 2017, it's the most recent data I was able to find. And you can see right in the middle, you see the tall lines? That's the heat deaths. You see the winter and cold deaths? Those are the much lower ones right to the right of that middle one. More people die from heat than cold. Yes, people do die from cold. I'm from Connecticut. It happens there all the time. You might live in Texas, which because of its like purposefully bonked electrical grid, people unfortunately die during the winter. That is true. More people die during the extreme heating events, which are becoming more common and more extreme. We brought up that graphic briefly. There's a study done recently. Columbia University's Earth Institute believes that global warming will kill 83 million people in the next 80 years. That's a lot. It's more than those who will be saved by the fact that it won't be as cold in winter. Right now, by the way, 96 million people are under warnings of heat waves right now. People will die. And they might get a little bit of cooling from that pond, which looks like it has a picture of Elizabeth Warren looking out at it. I'm not sure exactly who that is, but oh, by the way, just one little fun thing. I apologize, Caroline. That estimate, the 83 million people that will be dead in the next 80 years, you might think, well, okay, come on. But that's like the most radical possible inclusion. You're overestimating it, you're including literally everything. No, they very much were not. Those calculations don't include the number of people who might die from rising seas, superstorms, crop failures, or changing disease patterns affected by atmospheric warming. They are literally only including people who are killed by the literal direct heating. Not people who will lose access to water resources, not people who will die as a result of intra or interstate conflict, civil wars, resource wars. This is just people being killed by the heat, and it's in the tens of millions.
Yeah, I think I want to also hone in on something she said about the world is getting greener. And honestly, for her, in her worldview, it might very well be, because she's also getting richer as she is making, her profile is constantly expanding. She just won re-election by a pretty wide margin, or in her primary in Georgia.
Yeah.
And environmental justice is economic justice. It's been proven time and time again that the wealthy have more access to green spaces, shade, things that quite literally make it cooler and make it easier to survive in hot temperatures. So she's honestly telling on herself by saying that her worldview is getting greener and it's getting more environmental, because for her, it literally is. That's what happens when you get richer. You get more access to protections from these environmental disasters. And this whole thing really is just like an absolute breakdown of what the Republicans, how they operate. They create problems, and if they don't create the problems, they exacerbate them, and then they offer these solutions to the problems that could have been mitigated in the first place. And they call that governing. And honestly, it's electable in some ways, and it's really frustrating, and
It's frustrating.
It's frustrating.
It is, yeah. Yeah, their job is to delay as long as possible so that oil companies can generate as much profit as possible for as long as possible. That's all it really is. And again, for anyone who might be relatively new to politics or whatever, value systems and why certain positions on certain issues tend to be affiliated with progressives versus conservatives, it might be complicated, and it is interesting the way that those value systems are constructed. Back when I was in academia, that was actually the thing that I was doing my dissertation on. But to be clear, as far as I can tell, there is no reason why it should be the conservative position that we should either refuse to acknowledge or should surrender in the face of climate destruction. There's no reason for that. Yeah. Conservation was at one point a conservative thing. Now I understand why the politicians do it. It is, as we said, to protect those companies, to protect them from regulation, to maintain their high profits. That's great for them, but if you're a regular conservative, how much money are you making off of Exxon? Do you have stock? Maybe get it, because they're probably gonna do pretty well. But other than that, there is no reason why you cannot take this seriously and still be a conservative to your very core.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges, You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.